Hey, here we are again, back in the bin of DVDs that my family replayed over and over when I was a kid. Some of them hold up less than others, but one that surpassed my expectations upon rewatch was Happy Feet. Released in 2006, amongst the mid-2000s Penguin movie craze, other notable ones being March of the Penguins and Surf's Up, Footloose with Penguins stood out from the others, and today we're going to talk about why. Let's dive in. Literally. Because it's a movie about penguins. First of all, it was so fun watching this movie again, now with my musical knowledge and knowing the origins of all the songs that are included in this film. This movie introduced me to so many songs I love now: Boogie Wonderland, In My Room, The Message, Kiss, Somebody to Love, multiple Stevie Wonder songs, and so many more. The nature of music in the Penguins universe is extremely spiritual, as it's a core part of their being and crucial to how they mate and build up their waddle, which is the name for a penguin colony, apparently. I'm gonna have so much fun saying that during this video. Anyway, you can really feel the passion for music oozing from all of the singing and tapping scenes. I always adored the Boogie Wonderland and Somebody to Love scenes growing up, but watching it again, my favorite moment is definitely mumble tapping to I Wish by Stevie Wonder. That scene is dripping with joy from every angle, and I want to watch it over and over again. It's been stuck in my head for the last week, and I'm starting to think that song might have one of the sonically best intros ever put to music. I think it might also be the longest sustained shot of us just watching Mumble dance. Nothing could have prepared me for what comes right after, though. Being a penguin seems like a terrifying experience. I was talking to some friends recently about this, and we were wondering if penguins think their experience of huddling in the harsh winters is miserable, or if they're just used to it because they don't know anything else. This is before I decided to make this video, by the way. We were just talking about penguins. Let me know what you think about that. Maybe there's a penguin enthusiast watching this. When we were talking about this movie on my Patreon Discord, a few of my patrons mentioned that they recalled this movie as more of a horror experience than anything, and I really don't blame them after watching it again. There are so many scenes that stressed me out and got my blood pumping, and I can easily see them being burned into someone's memory. The skua trying to eat baby Mumble right after he dances to I Wish is so terrifying, and seeing him shiver with fear in the ice really yanks at my heartstrings. And the scene of the leopard seal, though I think its rendering might be one of the visual weak spots of the movie, is another one of those scenes that had me on the edge of my seat. And because it's been so long since I've seen this movie, like at least 10 years if not maybe 15, I really was on the edge of my seat. Like, I didn't remember any of this stuff that was happening, and it kind of felt like I was watching it again for the first time. Happy Feet was the first digitally animated feature film ever produced in Australia by the production company Animal Logic. Watching 3D rendered penguins from 2006 occasionally hits the uncanny valley, but overall I think the animation is fucking beautiful. The scene when Mumble gets exiled from the Emperor Penguins and you see the panic in his mother's eyes, her reaction is so easy to read even though it's not on a human face. Another scene that comes to mind is Mumble and the Amigos sledding, leading into the underwater scene, which, despite depicting a terrifying abyss, is still absolutely stunning. The movie required so much computing power to animate that Animal Logic actually worked with IBM to build a server farm, and the film took 4 years to make, partially because new tools and infrastructure had to be built for it to happen. Rendering apparently took up to 17 million CPU hours over 9 months. The dancing scenes involved a lot of motion capture, with the tap dancing for Mumble being performed by legend Savion Glover, who was one of the choreographers for the film. If you've never watched videos of him tap dancing before, definitely check it out, it's fascinating. I did tap for a few years when I was a kid, and it's an incredibly demanding style of dance that requires a strong internal sense of rhythm, great balance, and stamina. The dancers went through penguin school to learn how to move like a penguin, and they wore beak-like apparatuses on their faces. I'm always blown away by the dancing in the Boogie Wonderland scene in the middle of the movie. It's absolutely mesmerizing watching their stomp and tap routine as more and more penguins join in on the music and dance. It's so satisfying to me, with the lovely camera work and hundreds of penguins synchronized. It's seriously such a feat for the year it was released. Another cool thing to note is the way Mumble's fur is styled compared to the others. They made him molt later than his peers to further symbolize his late bloomer nature and otherness from the waddle, but they also styled his feathers in a tuxedo of sorts with a bow tie and spats at his feet. He was originally supposed to molt entirely by the end of the film, but I'm really glad they didn't go that route. E.G. Daly's performance as Baby Mumble is so adorable, it tugs at my heartstrings. And Elijah Wood was such an amazing casting choice to play adult Mumble. His voice is just perfect for the demeanor and role that they were going for. 90s goddess Brittany Murphy had an amazing singing voice and a soft and comforting delivery as Gloria. Robin Williams, though cast in a problematic role, which we'll get into in a bit, gave a great performance as always. The film world seriously hasn't been the same since he left us. Mumble's parents were played by Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman, who both delivered on the vocals. Also, Trev the elephant seal is played by Steve Irwin. Lots of legends in here, and sadly, a number of them are no longer with us. Rest in peace.
What you waiting for?
Hang on for the year's coolest ride.
That's enough. I feel your love.
From Warner Brothers Pictures
Drop back anytime, rubber butt.
comes the adventure
Bow down. You're the man. You're the man.
that will bring the world
Show me what you got.
to its feet. Happy Feet.
What's the beat?
Rated PG-18 at IMAX November 17.
Put on your happy feet at Burger King. Now with every kids meal, choose any one of these. Then take 2 of these drinks or sides, including delicious apples and grapes. Join the fun with the coolest of toys from Happy Feet the movie. You can collect them all. Tap on in to Burger King.
So this movie was directed by George Miller, you know, the guy who made the Mad Max movies? Which might seem random at first, but given the message of the movie, I think it kind of makes sense. While shooting of Mad Max 2 was taking place, a chance encounter gave him the inspiration for Happy Feet.
We were sitting in this bar, having a milkshake, and he looked across at me and said, "Antarctica." He'd shot a documentary there. He said, "You've got to make a film in Antarctica. It's just like out here, in the wasteland. It's spectacular." And that always stuck in my head.
The he in question in that quote was an old cameraman, the son of Frank Hurley, photographer of the Shackleton expeditions, which were the last major expeditions of the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. The movie was also inspired by documentaries such as Life in the Freezer, a 1993 BBC production studying the seasonal cycle of Antarctica. The screenplay was pitched to Warner Bros. Or Brothers, because I know there's going to be that one comment that's mad I said Warner Bros., randomly during an unrelated meeting by producer Doug Mitchell, asking studio president Alan Horn to read it as he and George Miller flew back to Australia. When they got off the plane, Warner Bros. Had decided to fund the film, and production was supposed to begin sometime after the 4th Mad Max film completed. But due to geopolitical complications, Happy Feet was prioritized in 2003. Pretty normal stuff as far as production goes, really, but as I was researching for this video, I found out some abnormal stuff present in the earlier screenplays. There was a significant subplot about extraterrestrial aliens planning to siphon the planet's resources, but in the end, Mumble made contact with them and they didn't go through with it. And this was taken out during the last year of production. While digging around online, I also found someone on Reddit claiming many more interesting things, so I'll just read the passage here.
Happy Feet had an insanely interesting production. The God is an Alien alternate ending and deleted scenes, the first draft of which is much, much darker. The 4 times it changed visual aesthetics. I've done a ton of research on it for an article I was going to write 6 years ago that I still haven't finished. One day I will. The God is an Alien alternate ending was present in every draft of the script and in the final film until a few months before release, when WB said it was just too weird and the ending had to be restructured. Basically, at the end, after Mumble has saved the colony and the fish have returned, we pull out way up into space to reveal 2 aliens watching the Earth through the gun sights of a giant spaceship. They're about to harvest all of Earth's resources and destroy the planet, but decide to stop when they see the footage of the penguins dancing. We find out it's because they look like penguins. More than that, I was told by 2 of the primary concept artists that they were designed to look just like the glowy penguin god we see in the beginning of the film. I haven't seen the aliens themselves, just concept art of the spaceship and the gun, and basic storyboards where they're just silhouette shapes, but I'm still very curious. It's a very heady sci-fi idea to throw into the last scene of your already intentionally schizophrenic and gleefully weird movie.
Also, interestingly, I found out about all this stuff 10 plus years ago on 4chan when someone anonymously posted all this information about the production. about its difficulties and how WB kept fighting with George Miller every step of the way about how weird the film was with work print screenshots. I took it all with a grain of salt, but started talking to people involved with the film, and yeah, all true. Then I read a few drafts of the screenplay and saw the concept art, and there it was.
This person was supposedly writing an article on this, and I tried to reach out to them twice to see if they ever finished it, but sadly I didn't hear back. But in that thread, they did share a piece of concept art of the spaceship and 2 drafts of the screenplay along with this tidbit of information. Here's the spaceship, but that's all I can share of the concept art that I've seen until I finish the article. There are 2 screenplay drafts available online, both by George Miller and John Cawley at different stages of development, but very close to the finished film with the alternate ending still present. You can definitely see in both drafts how different in tone the film was. It's clear they were aiming for a hard PG-13 from the amount of 4-letter words alone. This mostly remains in the finished film, but it's been smoothed out a little around the edges. Curiously though, the draft found at John Cawley's website is listed as the first draft. I was told by the film's primary storyboard artist, Mark Sexton, who also did the storyboards for Fury Road, that the earliest treatment for the film, the one that WB signed off on for production, was a much darker work. Both of Mumble's parents die, and he ends up being much more of an angry, isolated weirdo as a result. The ending was much more bleak, and everything in general was a lot harsher. He went into some detail about it, but I'll go into that with the finished piece. Okay, quotes are over now. And again, I don't think that this person ever published the article. I did kind of Google around looking for what they were talking about, but I was unable to find it, nor did they post it from their Reddit account. I did also find this piece of concept art by David Woodland of what the aliens may have looked like in the early ideations. It's cool knowing all of this to see the way that they retooled the idea of aliens in this movie, referring to the humans as such, which makes perfect sense for a bunch of animals who have never registered humans' existence before. Some of this concept art seems to have been presented at a convention called SIGGRAPH in 2007, during a session called Happy Feet, Thawing the CG Pipeline. But the most that I found out about this were a few records of the events at SIGGRAPH and a text-only live blog from a person named Brooks Boyd. They showed spaceship interiors and that face in the ice. Some cool nuggets of info were in that live blog, like the fact that the film wasn't always a musical, but heart songs were still there since birds called to each other across great distances in real life. It also says that they had a process called lensing, where they treated the editing process like they were going from one shooting day on set to another, focusing on scenes versus shots. About 70 characters were modeled down to the muscle motion, and there were about 15 rig types per character, averaging out to 1 rig per rigging artist created every 2 days. They also apparently created a separate color grading of the film for HD and Blu-ray releases. It is interesting to note that for a mobile game made for the movie, which I found footage of being played on a Nokia phone, aliens appear in a spaceship at the end of the game asking if they should harvest. It was developed for the Japan market, and the player does some DDR-esque moves and platforming. But this game came out after the movie was released, so it's pretty weird that the aliens are still there. There were also games made for GBA, PC, PS2, GameCube, DS, and Wii, and it seems like most versions of the game have DDR, fishing, and sledding modes. While the GBA version was a platformer. Classic case of same game, different name, and I'm working on a separate video about that will cover all of these shovelware video games we've talked about in my videos recently. I had an Xbox growing up, so I didn't get to play any of the Happy Feet games, but I do love me some DDR.
Hey, you like to party? What you waiting for?
Come here, sausage. I take you with ketchup.
But first you got to catch up. First ever flying flipper bird.
Remember dumplings? I know where you live.
Yeah, it's called Land Rover, but
Happy Feet.
you are a nation of beanie weenie piddly diddly poof.
Rated PG. In theaters and IMAX November 17th. If you thought being a penguin was hard, think again.
Woo!
This holiday season,
You like to party?
get happy.
Turn to the penguin next to you and give him a hug.
Happy Feet. Rated PG.
What you hugging me for? He told me to.
Now playing.
Happy Feet far exceeded its budget in profits, making $384 million against a $100 million budget. It also netted generally positive reviews at the time of release and won multiple awards, including the BAFTA Award for Best Animated Film, and was only the 4th non-Disney Pixar animated film to win the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. However, it lost both the Annie Award for Best Animated Feature and the Saturn Award for Best Animated Film to Cars, of all things. Ka-chow. Dude, I love Robin Williams so much, but looking back, they should not have cast a white guy doing an accent as Ramon. I really enjoy the Amigos, but the Amelie Penguin Waddle is a massive walking pile of stereotypes played for comedy. It's even worse when you know that all of the people involved in directing, producing, and writing the screenplay were white. The voice actors for Nestor, Paul, Rinaldo, and Lombardo seem to be of an appropriate descent for their roles. There are some funny moments of dialogue between the Amigos, and I think they add a lot of fun and charm to the otherwise somewhat serious script, but their characterization just wasn't sitting right with my spirit this time around. I am not of Latin descent, I'm Indian, so if anyone watching this who would like to share their perspective on this topic, I invite you to do so if you feel comfortable. I honestly didn't remember much other than the musical sequences from my childhood, which made watching the second hour of this movie an absolute roller coaster. If you remember this movie just being some music and dance penguins in the Arctic, you're forgetting a lot of it. While Mumble's dancing and inability to sing are at the forefront for the first 30 minutes or so, the main problem for the Emperor Waddle in this movie is actually overfishing causing them a food scarcity. The elder penguins tell the Waddle that this is because they have not pleased their god because Mumble can't sing and is dancing, when in reality the aliens, aka the humans, are overfishing in the Antarctic. Through some wacky but also deeply depressing and anti-zoo hijinks, Mumble ends up tap dancing in front of many humans and attracting attention to the issues facing the penguins. We could argue over what the true climax of the movie is because it kind of stretches out over the last quarter of the movie, but it includes a short scene which I find a bit funny, seeming to be the UN arguing over how to address the issue. Is equal to
I don't want to live alone without penguins.
The clip of the guy yelling, "I don't want to live in a world without penguins," is so funny to me, dude. Although they probably didn't intend this in the original script, there's a pretty obvious queer read you can do of Mumble, born inherently different from his peers, born different from, quote, the norm, that difference being seen by his community as something wrong with him, when in fact he's celebrated for being who he is as the times change, all that good stuff. But really, that can apply to anyone who's ever felt like an outsider because of something inherent. I like how strongly Gloria rides for Mumble in this movie, despite how much everyone else is against him just because he's being who he is. And the scene where she tries to go with him and he rebuffs her has always pissed me off. That's probably intentional, but I think that it would have built up their relationship in a more satisfying way to have her go with him and Lovelace and the Amigos, even if he still got carted off to the zoo on his own. And instead of this manufactured pain we feel at their argument and rejection, a much more organic pain would be felt in the face of their separation after earnest affection expressed for each other when Mumble gets taken to the zoo. I think the way they went about it makes the reunion a bit flat and gimmicky. Ultimately, I'm just complaining about penguin romance and I should probably go touch some snow after this, but if you're gonna write a love story into a movie, do it better than this, please. The way they went about it is very tired and contrived. Happy Feet has its flaws, especially in the representation of the Amigos, but ultimately it stands as a labor of love for music, animation, and dance, and I think it's worth a watch this winter if you haven't seen it or it's been many years since. It's a visually impressive film with some truly stunning moments, brimming with good tunes and topped off with an environmental message that is much needed at this point. Our ice caps are melting. It's a story about being yourself and embracing what makes you unique, and the ways that the things that are special about you can help make the world a better place. Pretty wholesome. And that's why I still love Happy Feet. Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Hope you're having a lovely holiday season if you're watching this around the time of the release, and I'm excited to make more fun stuff for you in the new year. I'll also be launching my vlog and lifestyle channel in 2023 where I'll post behind the scenes stuff, personal stories and life lessons, and peeks into what my life is like. I'll be dropping my fashion reels there as well. I also have a music channel where I upload covers and official releases from my artist name, Kikimo, which is also on Spotify and Apple Music. Sometimes I post a song from the movie I'm doing a video essay about. If those things interest you, then please go subscribe. Links for everything below. Take care of your loved ones, stay hydrated, tell your friends you love them, be safe if you're partying on New Year's, and I'll see you soon. Peace.
I am the queen of the universe. The waves part. They engulf me in the waters warm. question.